Today, we will talk about how Babylon created one of the earliest financial systems in history, how clay tablets worked like book pages, how loans and interest were organized, how temples functioned like early banks, and why laws such as the Code of Hammurabi protected both lenders and borrowers. By understanding Babylon, we will understand the roots of modern finance. People often imagine Babylon as towering ziggurats, the hanging gardens, and mysterious kings described in ancient texts. But beneath the monumental architecture and legendary rulers, there was a far more revolutionary reason. Here existed a financial system that shaped how the world would one day manage money, debt, contracts, and trust. Babylon was not just a kingdom of bricks and myths. It was one of the first places where finance was organized, documented, and turned into institutions. Long before paper money, credit cards, and modern stock exchanges, the Babylonians carved inscriptions into wet clay and dried them under the Mesopotamian sun. These tablets, thousands of them, formed one of the oldest archives of human financial activity. What looks like simple writing to us today was, at that time, an extraordinary awakening. It allowed societies to track who owed whom, who had paid how much, and under what conditions. With these tools, Babylon turned economic relationships into enforceable rules and long-term agreements, laying the foundations of financial civilization. Around 2000 BCE, Babylonian scribes began recording transactions on clay tablets using cuneiform. A single tablet could contain information about a farmer's grain debt, a merchant receiving silver in advance, or the wages owed to a worker. These were not simple notes, they were legal documents. Before writing, economic memory depended on oral agreements, personal trust, and social obligations. But memory faded, relationships changed, and disputes could easily arise. The clay tablet preserved economic truth outside the human mind, making it possible to resolve conflicts through permanent records. Each tablet typically included the names of the parties, the amount, the interest rate, witnesses, seals, and payment terms. In other words, formal contracts. Credit was no longer just a personal relationship. It became a calculable mechanism. Perhaps the most striking fact is that Babylonian finance developed even without coins. Value was measured in weighed silver or in commodities such as barley and wheat. Yet loan contracts, collateral agreements, future crop deals, and complex interest systems all existed. A merchant could finance a caravan with borrowed silver, and a farmer could pledge a share of next year's harvest as collateral. Contracts transformed uncertain promises into enforceable obligations, placing power not in violence, but in law, knowledge, and the ability to manage time wisely. Babylon also formalized interest, viewing it not as greed, but as compensation for risk and time. Interest on grain loans differed from interest on silver loans because agricultural risk was higher. Time itself became an economic resource, something that could be measured and exchanged. But interest had a dark side. It could grow faster than income and trap families in cycles of debt. Some lost their land, others fell into debt slavery. Babylonian rulers recognized the danger early. From time to time, they declared debt amnesties, canceling certain debts and freeing debt slaves. These decisions were not only acts of mercy, but tools of stabilization. Excessive debt weakened farmers, weakened the army, and fractured society. Babylon understood that finance could create prosperity, but unmanaged, it could destroy civilization. Temples and palaces stood at the center of this financial system. They acted as banks, warehouses, courts, and contract registries. Farmers stored their produce in temples, merchants received financing, and scribes authenticated agreements with official seals. Because temples were associated with divine authority, they gave contracts moral weight. Breaking a financial promise carried not only legal consequences, but spiritual risk. These institutions were, in many ways, the world's first central banks, large, trusted structures that protected value and ensured fairness. One of humanity's oldest legal systems, the Code of Hammurabi, clearly shows how deeply finance was rooted in Babylonian life. Many of its laws dealt with debt, collateral, wages, liability, and fraud. Some rules protected borrowers during natural disasters. Others limited interest or clarified property rights. Writing these rules into law raised finance from private arrangement to public order. People could plan, trade, and invest because the law stood behind them. Babylon was also the heart of a vast trading network. Caravans crossed deserts and mountain passes, linking Mesopotamia to Anatolia, the Levant, and Persia. These journeys required capital, animals, guards, provisions, and time. Loans made the journeys possible, and contracts divided the risk. Some financiers did not receive fixed interest, but instead took a share of profits, planting the earliest seeds of partnership. Finance allowed people to operate beyond the limits of what they physically owned, an idea that later became fundamental to global capitalism. Babylon's financial system revealed an important truth. Money is not merely an object, it is an agreement. Clay tablets drew their power not from the material itself, but from the respect society gave them. Trust turned clay into law. That idea survives today. Our world rarely runs on metal coins. It runs on digital records, promises protected by institutions and contracts. In a sense, it was ledgers, more than armies, that shaped the future. When Babylon fell, its financial innovations did not disappear. The Assyrian, Persian, Greek, and Roman empires inherited these practices. Contracts, accounting, institutional trust, and legal frameworks spread across civilizations. Centuries later, Italian bankers, North African merchants, and Asian traders, knowingly or unknowingly, practiced principles first tested in Mesopotamia. Modern banking, accounting, and commercial law still carry Babylon's imprint. Babylon left us three great lessons. First, finance requires trust, and trust requires records. Without reliable ledgers, economies collapse. Second, debt is powerful. It can create growth, fuel innovation, and cushion hardship, but unmanaged, it can destabilize societies. Debt amnesties remind us that systems sometimes must renew themselves to protect human dignity. Third, law turns economic power into predictable order. Without rules, finance becomes wild and destructive. With rules, it becomes a tool of civilization. In the end, Babylon's financial legacy is not only about clay tablets or early loans. It shows that civilization depends on measuring promises, preserving memory outside the human brain, and building systems that outlast individuals. For Babylon, finance was not just bookkeeping, it was governance, ethics, and social engineering. It determined who owned land, who traveled, who prospered, and who struggled. It proved that numbers can shape destiny as powerfully as armies. As long as societies continue to borrow, lend, invest, debate justice, and search for balance between profit and fairness, Babylon's influence will live on. Its shadow survives not in collapsed walls or vanished gardens, but in ledgers, digital databases, contracts, interest rates, and in the idea that trust can be written, preserved, and enforced. Babylon showed the world that recorded economic memory can become the backbone of civilization, and in this sense, the clay tablets of ancient Mesopotamia still speak today, quietly guiding the systems that govern our modern financial world. Thank you for watching us. If this topic was interesting to you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications. In the upcoming videos on this channel, we will take a deeper look at history, economics, and the major processes shaping the world. Your opinions are important to us as well. Share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, those who understand the past build the future more correctly.